Welcome! Here is the promised life that I wanted to do with you today. This day has many special reasons. One, it's actually considered half birthday. I just found out, just recently, someone shared with me how they're celebrating their half birthdays, and hello. And so here is my half birthday. So with my half birthday, I'm not only celebrating that, I'm also celebrating my completion of my 2-year mindfulness teacher training, which I will get into it in a moment on what I've learned on this journey. And I titled this live especially to the call, how can we use challenges to our fuel? Yay, I'm so excited to have you here with me. And so what's really exciting about this is that we don't understand how 2 years have an impact in our lives. I actually wanted to compare this to my bachelor's that I got in 2.5 years. And I just reflected on it yesterday and I was like, wow, I can't believe that what time means. And when we talk about investment, it's not just a financial investment that we are doing to our education or ourselves or whatever financial input that you're doing. It's actually a time investment. And if I think about it as a time investment, it's really, really important to recognize that time and money go side by side. And one is not more important than the other. What's actually more important is what's happening during that time frame and how a financial leverage can give us. And so if we're not so much focused on the financial, because I could have easily looked at this as like, okay, I'm putting this money in, I'm getting this degree at the end, right? Because this is how we function. This is how we move through life. We believe that, or at least that's what I've been feeling like, is like I'm putting money in something and there is an outcome for it, right? And that end goal is what I'm aiming for. But nobody's telling us that actually, well, maybe they are, we just don't hear it, but nobody's telling us that in between that time I sign up for whatever it is that I invest myself to the end time that I'm ending up there has to do with what I bring to the table. So there's 2 versions that I could have gone through this program. I could have gone through this program by just taking in all the information, showing up everywhere that I needed to be, doing all the work that is requested of me, which I did, and call it quits, right? That's it. That's all I'm going to do because all I want is at the end to have that certificate, which actually at this moment in time, I don't even have. So God knows if I'm even going to have it. So that aside, right? Let's pretend I have the certificate and here we are. So I could have gone that route where I just stay on that. So what if, and that's not just an if, but when I started to be practicing and being present in this program, especially when it comes to subjects like looking into diversity and equity, inclusivity and accessibility, talking about race, talking about social structure, so talking about all these other aspects that up until that point, for me personally, wasn't really at the forefront. We don't realize what is happening inside of us. So whatever program you're signing up for, be it your education, like a college degree, be it this kind of program that I just did, or any program you're doing, if you're putting your whole heart into it and you're doing it not because of the degree that you get at the end, but because of the thing, the meaning behind the practice that you're putting yourself into, you can grow. It can fuel you because you will get to challenges. You will find yourself challenged because if you're putting your heart and soul into something, which I did, you are open. You're wide open, right? Vulnerability is like on the forefront. Like anything that's touching you will do something. and your body, your mind, everything will respond and react and will have a certain impact on you. And I'm not going to into details on what exactly happened during that time. If you're really interested in this, feel free to reach out. I would love to have a conversation in more specifics if you really are interested, but the specifics are actually not that important, because what I really want to focus on today, and actually in general, is that the details only matter in that moment. Because looking back, I can't even finger point exactly to what those things are. So as I move along, these challenges I found with this diversity, with this equity, with these challenges with myself, I'm starting to witness myself within the social structure, within my community, within my family, within all the aspects of my life where I as an individual am part of another person. And that can be one or more, right? That's when growth is happening, when we're willing to be open with one other person or more. In this case, it was more than one person. We were in a peer group of 5 people plus a mentor. At first, we were 6 peers. And after a short period of time, that one person has left. And there we were, the 5 of us. That already was a huge learning aspect. How starting off as 6 people and one person leaving for whatever reason, right? It changes the dynamics. It changes the commitment that you started with. You start with like, oh my God, we're all in one. We're all together in this, right? And then one person decides like, nope, I'm not in this with you guys. I'm out. It changes the way you feel about yourself, how you relate to the other people in the group. You start to realize that this grief and loss shows up all the time in our lives. And this happened to be with someone we didn't even know. So the interesting thing is really here, and this is really the first lesson that I've learned how a challenge can fuel me and us in general, is that when something changes, when something shifts, we not to tend to what we usually do is to what's wrong with that person? Why would they do this? But actually seeing like what's happening with me? What does that mean to me? And to me, what it meant is like, I must have done, like I had an impact on that, just so it's out there, because I'm an open-minded person. I'm speaking my mind, and that's what happens sometimes. And then people like it or don't like it. And so I had to reflect, like, what was my part in this? Like, what is it that I did that possibly I could have done better to maybe not have her leave? And not about her per se, but actually my impact. And that's a very, very first lesson that I learned in this training is impact, intention versus impact. Most of us have good intentions. Most of us walk through life wanting to do good for others and ourselves. Like way down ourselves, but we definitely have good intentions, right? And yet, how often have you find yourself impacting someone in a negative way? How often have your good intentions turned out to be not so good intentions, right? Not for you, but for the other person. How often have you been in a conflict with someone where you thought you said the right thing, like me saying something because I thought that's what they wanted to hear, because they asked like, is someone talking about me behind my back? And guess what? Yes, we did. So I said it. I thought she wanted to know. But apparently, she wasn't actually wanting to know everything, right? So with that, I had to realize that my impact on her being honest, my good intentions of being honest, weren't really helpful. Because for her, it was like, I don't want to be with people that are talking behind my back. Even if we were all willing to open up and make a difference and change the way we behave behind her back, right? So that was really the first lesson. But that intention and impact really stuck with me all throughout this program. It's the the biggest lesson I really learned in this is that how I see the world, how I have intentions into this world has an impact on other people. And that it's not just me giving up my intentions and just focusing on the impact, but really noticing the back and forth between the two. And that sometimes our intentions will lead to a negative impact. And if the other person is not willing to move through this conflict with you, then there will be a separation. And so that's a little bit of a topic of grief and loss, intention and impact. Another thing that was a huge lesson for me is that not to give up, right? The way this one person probably felt, I was there too. Just about a year ago, that's how I felt. I felt alone. I felt neglected. I felt not heard. I felt in the wrong place, misunderstood. So many things I felt that made me wanted to give up. Like I was so close in saying like, I don't want to do this no more. Which reminded me of that's probably what this person has gone through. That she just couldn't do it anymore. And there were many other factors, obviously, with this other person, and I don't know. And I'm not just using this as an example of like my personal experiences and seeing another reflection of what someone else has gone through. And what I've realized through this whole entire process of me feeling all these feelings that I just shared, from neglect, from loneliness, from not being heard and seen, and with the topic of diversity, equity, inclusivity, and accessibility, that was a whole discrepancy. There was a huge gap between where I was and who I wanted to be and what the program was here to do for me. And being in a program, considering mindfulness, and being in these challenges, you wonder, why is it like this in an environment like this? And my answer that I know now very clearly is, it's not about the practice. It's about your willingness to show up. It's not the practice that is going to save you. The savor of the practice is just you embodying it, you living it. That's it. But the practice doesn't determine how people show up, how people deal with their challenges, who people are in the first place, right? Us finding ourselves in this practice of mindfulness was just here to have certain tools and practices to return to when these things are happening. So as I'm meeting this group of people twice a month, every 2 weeks, finding myself in this emotional turbulence, in figuring this out. Sometimes it was days of crying, days of not knowing, and not having the ability to interact with my peers to solve the problem, because that was my MO, or as we say, right? That's my go-to. For me, my go-to is move right into difficult situation, just right into the depth, and like, we have a problem here, let's talk about it, let's take all our tools and figure it out. And lo and behold, I had to practice mindfulness in a different way. Yes, going into difficult situation. Yes, bringing yourself into these conversations that maybe are driving you and that fuel you. There's another person on the other side. And that other person goes through life in a different way. And so my practice of mindfulness that I had to learn was to be patient, to listen, to take a few steps back, give space to other people, and just keep showing up as my true self, not changing myself because of the situation, but actually really finding myself in tune even deeper with myself, going into lonelytude. And in that lonelytude, it really was a way to reflect It's like, instead of putting myself down, instead of pushing myself away, instead of trying to find other ways to make this work, like leaving the program, I did reach out to, the administration to talk about this challenge that I found within myself. And they couldn't help me, because that's not what the program was here to do. That was a huge aha moment, as we may say, right? It was like, wow, I didn't know that mindfulness, it wasn't supposed to be in this journey of extreme support and like, let's help each other to... Yes, it was, and it wasn't, because we were all on our own journey. We were all trying to figure out, how can we make this work for us? So having said all this, what really stood out and what the lessons really are from this experience is to really understand that I am not in this alone. And while I'm not alone in this, it's not up to me to make it work for all of us. So that's really the lessons that I learned. Besides implementing or increasing the other practices of mindfulness for myself, it allowed me to understand what it means to be in community. I really learned with the dedication of my peers who maybe at that time when I was at my lowest weren't able to help me because they too had something to figure out for themselves. Maybe they too were at their lowest at that time. When people are at their lowest, they figure themselves out and what they know the best. And what is my best is not your best. So what I had to really learn with my patience and listening and keep showing up was, and with that space I gave people, is that there was a time that people were able to give me the answers at some point. And it did happen. That one conversation with the one person that was a key factor in this came to me and spoke with me. And it was like, I cannot even describe it, but it was just like something was just opening up, like the sky was blue, the clouds were gone, the thunder has escaped. Like all these things, it was just clear blue sky. And so it was really like, we could also call it like weight lifted off my shoulders. I was able to show up in the group with a different sense, with a different meaning, knowing that it wasn't me. It wasn't my fault. Maybe, yes, I had some impact to causing certain fractions or disruptions inside of other people. And at the same time, me too, I had to learn something. And so it was really the beauty of this 2-year program was that it takes 2 years to really get to know each other on this level. These are strangers. I haven't met them before 2 years ago. And yet there's a beauty that comes with it that teaches us how to be with other people. And being in this environment of mindfulness that is helping us to create a safe space, it's a huge reminder to know that that's what we need to do, is to be in community, to be with other people, finding someone or a group of people that lets us be who we are, explore those difficult and challenging and most of it, discomforting places within ourselves. And by doing that, we actually can create a community that cares for one another. And even if it just starts within a small group of people, lo and behold, you will figure this out with your family, with your actual community, your neighbors, your school, your whoever you are in touch with, right? And when that happens, the beauty that comes from it is unbelievable. When you start letting go of what you think it should be, when you start accepting that certain things are just the way they are for right now, not forever, just for right now, when you move with more ease and don't take things too personal. That's a huge lesson I learned. I now don't take things personally because I know it has not always anything to do with me. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but it's not worth for me to get too ingrained in these thought processes of, oh, what did I do? Why did I act like this? Why did they treat me like this? It's not worth it, because that energy could be just put into looking within myself, writing in a journal, reading a book, and just trying to stay on track with what I really want to achieve in life. And if I can do that with, oh, I'm frozen. Okay. Hopefully I'll come back. If I can do this with a safe way, then I hope I can help you with this. So if you find yourself in a challenging time, and hold on. So if you find yourself in these moments that you don't know how to move on any longer, or you have these challenging people in your life, maybe a particular person that you can actually talk to, or if it is someone that is maybe in, excuse me, is a public person, or anything that you find yourself challenged with the other person, and you want to figure this out, one, you can reach out to me, talk with me, as I got some experience here now, and also figuring it out with yourself. What am I missing? And it really is, it's not just I learned this in these 2 years. What it really taught me is that all my life, and that's now over 40 years, I really tried to bring harmony to the people I love. My family, my friends, anybody that I come across with, I just want to love them just the way they are, because I want them to love me just the way I am. And if that's not enough, then I don't know what is. Because we gotta start loving ourselves just for who we are. And if we can do this, we start loving everyone else around us just for who they are, for the choices they made, for the paths they picked, for wherever they're going. Because at the end of the day, it's not up to me to decide what your future is going to be like. It's not up to me to make you feel better. I have to figure out for myself what can I do for myself, and then I probably will help you too. And so it's really this community, this engaging, the connections that we create, a deeper human connection with ourselves first. Because if I don't know my limitations, my boundaries, where I want to be, how I want to be, then how on earth are you going to work with other people, be with other people when you don't know? Because if you don't know, they will know even less. And so it's up to us to practice this awareness of who we are and understanding that everyone is going through the same process of trying to be the best version of who they are. And if that's challenging for them, then we gotta practice being in a difficult situation more and being uncomfortable. So I'm just gonna close this conversation here because I share with you my little journey I had in these 2 years, these ups and downs that I had, and really thriving through it and just keep the eye on the ball, which means obviously it could be just finishing this program, but at the end of the day, really learning something about myself and my peers at the same time. And those peers that I was learning from, that's your neighbor, that's your family, that's your brother, that's your sister, that's your child. It's anyone you come across with that you can learn something from. And if you think you know something more than they do, think again, because that might not be true. Maybe they can teach you something too. So Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here with me. Maria, thank you so much. This was very lovely. I hope you took something away from here. And if you have any questions of anything I just shared, please reach out. You can find me right on here. Alrighty then. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.